Good morning, Dr. Julie.
Good morning.
How are you today?
I'm good.
Yeah, me too. I'm excited
Why?
because that last episode with Bo Parfet was awesome. And we get to do another episode today in the second part of the 7 Summits of Parenting.
I know, I'm excited.
I know, but how come your mouth isn't moving?
I'm good.
That's because the audio to this first little video didn't work that great. So here we go anyways. Don't worry, it sounds great on the next. What is it that DLP is really specifically honing in on? Is it building more houses now in Africa? Is it doing things more in the United States? Where is the avenue of investment here?
Sure. And for anyone listening, DLP is a growing company. We're always looking for talented people. So feel free to help join our cause. So what we're focused on, I'm going to answer in two ways because we have the DLP Foundation.
Absolutely.
So for people listening, a business is one of the, if not the most creative platform to solve problems, to do good. Okay. So what we focus on at DLP is solving the affordable housing or the workforce housing crisis. People call it different things: workforce housing, affordable housing, or attainable housing. Okay. And for this interview, let's just say that generally means the same thing. There's some nuances there, but that's what we're trying to solve: is the market rate workforce housing crisis in America. And we've had this crisis in America since 1776. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Since this great country was founded, is for people to find a place to live that's safe, clean, and affordable. Mm-hmm. So how do we define that? So if your rents, okay, so my salary, okay, whatever I make, if my rents are 30% or less of what I make every year, then by definition, and this is the government and the leading experts, if your rent is 30% or less of what you make, then it's attainable. Okay. And at DLP, our rents are by mandate, by self-mandate, will be 30% or less of that local area income.
Yeah, the median income.
Yep. Okay. And we're at about 22%, plus or minus a little bit. Mm-hmm. And when you're spending such a small amount of your income on rent, you have so much more money for education, for healthcare, yes, maybe for a vacation, or if your car breaks down, you can fix it and you're not going to be able to not pay your rent. And something just happened, an eclipse just happened, I think in the last couple months, and this is not a good one, by the way, is for the first time in the US, the average American is spending more than 30% of their income on rent.
Yeah,
Many Americans spend 50, 60, 70% of their income on rent. And it is, without question, Dr. Skip and Dr. Julie, a crisis. This is a crisis. And there's a shortage of about 5 to 7 million of these units in America. And we're doing our best to solve it. So that's DLP on the kind of the for-profit side.
Well, if I can just really quick interrupt you,
Sure.
Bo, like Dr. Julie, you went through this here in Green Bay, and you had talked about how we have a large amount of homeless in Green Bay, but not a lot talk about it. But it's not that they're not unemployed. They're employed. They can't afford rental.
They can't. They
literally
not
can't afford rentals
available. But then the rentals that are available, there's no way for them to even that's not even close to that 30%.
Yep.
That's a big struggle.
It's a big crisis. When you told me about that, I was floored because I knew I was like, well, like most Americans assume that homeless people don't have jobs. They're not employed. It's the fact that they can't afford the housing, which Absolutely. Is a serious issue. And then to come back on top of it, affordable housing comes with a connotation that the people living there aren't good people, which is another thing you fight against. And I find that completely disheartening because if we're going to be looking at it from a humanitarian aspect and helping people, they need a chance, they need a place to live, and they need to take care of it. And most of them will. I rarely meet people that are of lower income, looking at lower income housing, that actually don't take a lot of pride in where they live already, because they're just happy that they're there, that they have a house for their kids, they have a roof over their head. And that is, it's just, it's remarkable to hear that stat, Bo, and it's very humbling, and it's nerve wracking at the same time.
And as parent, I know parents are listening too. So the reason why DLP, why we have this mission, to go back to the two most important moments of your life, the moment you're born and the moment you know why. So DLP's why is our CEO, Don Wenner, who was born in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania. His parents were 16 years old.
Oh, wow.
Can you imagine, everyone? And they're madly in love in high school. They're holding hands. She's pregnant, walking down the hallways in high school, heading to history class. Unfortunately, some of the people would talk behind there. Oh, that's them. There they go. They're going to throw their life away. They don't know what they're doing, right? But then on the other hand, they got a lot of support from their friends and family in their church. And they end up having Don at 16 years old. I think the dad had just turned 17. But they were so poor, they moved, I think it was 37 times by the time Don was 17 years old. 37.
Wow.
The average person stays in an apartment building or in a rental for about 14, 15 months. So when you move that much as a kid, your psychological safety, your cognitive development is often impaired. It's a huge problem facing millions of children in America. So what we're trying to do is, because Don had such a challenge as a child, we don't want any other child in America to go through that. So that's why we're really focused on keeping these rents attainable and affordable, because they'll stay much longer. We want people to stay in our places for 7, 8, 9 years.
Yeah.
Right. What an impact that would have. So the parents listening, hey, if you can hunker down in one area for a while, that would be really good for your kid. Dr. Julie, were you going to say something?
As it's just stability. Like that's all that a family, a child needs, is stability, to know that, okay, when I come home from school today, there's going to be a roof over my head. That's all that we need.
Yeah. Stability and comfort and trust. And it's hard to build a trust. It's hard to build that comfort, that home-like feeling. If you're constantly moving, the child never has a chance to actually be themselves. They're in that constant state of fight or flight, actually, and stress instead of rest and digest. And we can get all neurologically geeked out here, chiropractically, if we want, with cortisol levels in children, which isn't okay. But the side of all of this is that the stability changes. And we know that instability leads to massive disruption in a child's psyche, whether it's constant changing of teachers, constant changing of friends. We see it all the time. And in fact, that's why Julie and I have such a massive heart. And Bo, you don't know this, but we have a charity called the Spine Project, which helps take care of service veterans and their families. And the biggest impact of all of this, though, is the background on it is the children and the stability of the household for the children to be in. So when we're taking care of vets that have PTSD and anxiety and low back pain issues, and they can't be mothers or fathers to these children because they're in constant pain or constant stress, this child's inability to see a constant, to form trust, to have a foundation is off because they don't know what parent they're going to get every night. So we have this massive change, and we're always focused on getting these children stability. And it starts with the parents, and it starts with housing, and it starts with the area, the environment that they're in. And just, this is incredible. I'm so happy we're having this conversation, Bo.
Me too. And I love that you both have a foundation called the Spine Project, right?
Yeah.
Spine Project. Wonderful. So congratulations on that. That's super cool. Can I share a little bit about the DLP Foundation?
Absolutely. Please.
And we should connect on this. Let's double click on this, maybe offline, but we'd love to see how maybe we can collaborate with you.
That would be amazing. Foundation. That would be phenomenal.
So sometimes market forces can't solve a problem. Right. And that's okay too. That's why you have the Spine Project. DLP has the DLP Foundation. Now we're focused on a few things, a few key areas, but one of those would be homelessness, to keep on that theme of housing. And with homelessness, it's a much heavier lift because there's a lot of things going on, primarily with that individual. Okay. So what DLP does, and anyone that's listening, a lot of companies do a 1% pledge or a 2% pledge of profits or revenue to charity, and that's awesome. If I would humbly, provide a nudge, hey, if you could increase it and you feel comfortable doing it, increase it. But again, no pressure either way. DLP does 25% of our profits. 25% of our profits go to the DLP Foundation.
Wow.
And that's pretty darn cool. And again, we're focused on homelessness, for example. We're starting in St. Augustine, Florida. And then from there, we're going to move to Jacksonville and just kind of take it one step at a time. So I definitely wanted to mention that. Yeah, jump in. Were you going to say something, Dr. Skip?
I just think it's incredible, and focusing there in Florida is huge. And you're going to see, you have to go to the, I know why you're in Florida. I know your next steps will probably be more of the Southeast, or you're going to probably go West Coast, because the homeless population is going absolutely absurdly high out in California. And we can see that in San Francisco and San Diego, and you're seeing it in Florida as well. What do you see as a correction to this, Bo? Like, where do you see this going in the next 3 to 5 years? Do you feel that we will be able to create a strong enough foothold to be able to reduce rents to allow people to have a home? Or do you think this may still be an issue in 5 years and still climbing?
That's a good question. I'm hopeful that we will start to put a real serious dent and make some good progress in the next 5 years. I read an article, I think it was in the New York Times. I'd have to double check, but this was 3 or 4 months ago. And the article, the reporter was basically saying, here's the problem with workforce housing. So he wanted to blame everybody. So he first tried to blame the real estate developers. Well, it's your fault. Then he said it was actually the lumber companies. Okay. Lumber and steel and, the people that provide the roofing, the shingles,
right.
It's their fault, right? They're bad people. And then he tried to blame the tradesmen and women, the plumbers and electricians. They charge too much. And really the whole article was wrong. Okay. He missed the root cause. The root cause, okay, is the underlying zoning of the municipalities across the country. Strong majority of the time, they're prohibited. It's curtails fixing the problem. If we could change the zoning, boom, overnight, I bet you in 2 or 3 years we could solve most of this problem. And what we really need is we just need new supply, right? Supply is going to lower. More supply is going to lower the price, right?
Right. Yeah. So, yeah. Absolutely.
And it's just it fired me up so much, you two, that I'm now seriously considering writing a book that is, here are the best practices. Here's how we solve this problem. And then go and speaking to the municipalities and the real estate developers and the politicians and the local business and nonprofits and say, here's what we need to do to solve this problem. So I live in Boulder, Colorado, for example. Last I read, there's like 55,000 cars that pile into Boulder because they can't afford to live here. So people are spending 2 hours in their car when they could have 2 hours working on their health, working on their faith, being an awesome parent, spending more time with their kids, being healthy. There's a big opportunity for us here to put a dent in this.
I think with you hitting on zoning is incredibly insightful, and it's true because we've went through this ourselves.
We went through it, and I think the people that are on the board, right, they're just like you and I. And so we try to take a position that we want to do good for our community. But if we don't have experts like yourself, or like if you would make this book of, okay, here are the things that we need to look at. And I think once we can start to peel back those layers for people to understand that, okay, this is a solvable problem, I think that's when we're going to be able to start to make those changes.
And zoning changes all of it, because we've had those issues with when we were trying to develop a piece of real estate down the street from us. And what we found out is we were 3/4 of the way through development, and the zoning had actually said it's mixed use commercial. And then they had different covenants built in that needed to actually be added on, which then increased the cost of the construction. And it was crazy because we had things that were very affordable and very well done. But as soon as by the end of the day, and it's not the laborers, like tradesmen need to be paid an honest wage, and they need to so they can take care of their families. Like, this is all cyclical. But what they don't understand is that when they're adding different stipulations into these buildings and developments, it raises the cost, because it's just someone has a different idea of what the opportunity should be in that area when it's just not feasible.
Absolutely.
And things aren't looked at logically.
Yeah, exactly. Some zoning says, oh, it needs to have a 3-foot setback.
Yes.
But then that causes $1 million of
does.
added construction things.
Yes.
And you're like, really?
Because we want it to look nice versus, okay, we can take some homelessness away and get people into housing, but we need it to look.
And because this thing in this building has to be in this specific spot, it completely changes how the entire building's laid out. Therefore, the place where it actually should be at the lowest cost and make it the easiest way is not what the zoning is allowing us to do. Therefore, because of that, and the ignorance behind it, changes the entire landscape of how you can build a building or put people into it, which at the end of the day, the humanitarian side of me is like, I just want more of my brothers and sisters in proper housing, especially in the Midwest, because our winters are horrible here. They're cold, like all of that stuff. And then you look at the waterfall effect of that, of over the homeless shelters that are now overrun, the churches that run the food shelters and run the soup kitchens and different things here in Green Bay as well. They start getting overrun in the winter. And it's a burden, and it's a cost that I think you're hitting directly on the head, where we have to get everyone together and understand that changing the zoning laws and covenants in these areas are actually what the root cause is.
Absolutely.
This is incredible. This is I love it.
And I spend a lot of time in Florida because that's where DLP's headquartered. So a lot of people ask me, what's it like to live in, Michigan or Wisconsin or Minnesota? And I go, well, we have 9 months of winter and 3 months of bad sledding.
Yes, that's really what it is. Yeah, it's called water skiing, but it's 100% true. Bo, this has been an absolute amazing conversation with you, sir, and it's been absolutely enlightening. I love talking to just incredible human beings like yourself. Bo, what is the best way for our listeners to get involved with DLP, or to start doing some work in that area to really start making an impact with their money?
Sure. So a couple things. And then if I may, I want to talk one cool thing I learned from the Halftime Institute. I think a lot of parents would like that. Okay.
Absolutely.
So I think that, okay. So for parents, let's double click here a second. One thing that's really cool to do, I think there's a group called kiva.org, KIVA.org. And it's a microfinancing organization. They're all over the world. And you can make, and there's small little loans for people that need it. Mm-hmm. And you can do a loan for $5. And so what my wife and I do is we make these, and you just get your money back. You make a loan and you get your money back, and boom, you give someone another loan. And there's so many people out there that they don't want to hand out. They want to hand up in life. Mm-hmm. And there's millions of this demographic is, tens of millions of people. They want to hand up in life. They don't want to hand out. So Kiva does a great job at this. And now, so we've taught my kids how to do it. So once a month, our kids grab the computer, and all the loan payments that came back, again, boom, they come back, boom, you make another loan, you make another loan. It just keeps going. It's wonderful. And our 2 boys make the loans, while my wife and I could sit and have a cup of coffee or something. That's awesome. A glass of wine, and we watch them do it. So that's really cool, everybody. DLP is trying to solve it. You could give me a call. I'm DLP.com. Give me a call. Happy to chat with you about all the things you can do, all the things that we could help you with in some form or fashion. Another thing people can do is you could buy a home, and you could rent it out to someone and just cover your mortgage. And say, okay, you know what? Hey, I'm not going to make a profit, but I'm going to cover my mortgage, and I'm going to provide that house to someone that needs it. That's a great answer too. So there's so many cool things that people can do. So I'll Impact Assets is another nonprofit that does amazing work. The DLP Foundation does amazing work too. So a lot of ways people can plug in. Happy to help. And then I want to mention one cool thing about the Halftime Institute. Is that okay?
Please, absolutely. Please, we would love it.
Okay. So the Halftime Institute is a really cool organization. Definitely check it out. But it's a faith-based organization that's really trying to have people thrive in the second half of their life. Now, the second half doesn't mean, I've lived exactly half my life based on life expectancy. Some people's halftime could be, hey, I'm 21 years old and both my parents died. Well, guess what? You're gonna look at your life totally different. Some people's halftime starts, hey, I'm 70 years old. I've been working my tail off and I just pulled my head out of the sand. And oh my gosh, I'm 70 years old. And now what do I do? Mm-hmm. Right. So and Lloyd Reeb has a great TED talk out there. Lloyd Reeb, he's one of the founders of Halftime. And Lloyd is a mentor of mine. So I'm in the halftime. I'm in the halftime program. I'm about to be a halftime alum, which is pretty cool. But one of the things that Lloyd said to me, he said to our little group, is he said, "Hey, who here had a fun summer with their kids?" People raise their hand. Oh, we went here. People kind of list a travel log. We went to this national park, or we went to this thing, or we did this thing. So, which is all great. But then Lloyd will say, he goes, well, what specific skills and values did you teach your kids this summer to prepare them for when they're 18 years old? Who'd like to go first?
That's good.
You could have heard a pin drop, right?
Wow. Yeah.
So right. So what Lloyd created, or Halftime created, is specific skills that we as parents can teach our kids. So when they're 18, they're good. They're well equipped. So I took that list and I added to it. And now I have a 3-ring binder and we have the list. And one of the things on the list, for example, everyone, is how do you change a tire?
Yes.
Okay. How do you change a tire? How do you plan a trip?
Life skills.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Life skills. How do should you buy your first car or should you lease it? How do you negotiate? Right. So there's these masterclass, like I think it's the masterclass app. And one of the things that Lloyd said is if you don't teach these to some things you do have to teach to your kids, but in a perfect world, you'd learn it together.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So you take that negotiation class together. Right. Hey, you're learning right alongside your kid. Right. Mm-hmm. You're having, even though you know how to change a tire, have someone teach both of you at the same time. And then there's an openness that will occur. So that was just a huge aha for me in the last month or so. And I'm super pumped about it. So thanks for letting me share.
Yeah. And that halftime, that is how do people find out about this company, the Halftime Adjustments?
I think it's just the halftimeinstitute.org. Google it.
Halftimeinstitutes.org. Okay. We need to look into that too. That's incredible. Bo, this has been absolutely phenomenal. I can't thank you enough for coming on here. And I have to give a very, very warm-hearted thank you to Mr. Eric Cabral for actually making this happen. I was talking to Eric a few weeks ago. Again, Eric's a good friend of mine. And he's like, have you met Bo? And I'm like, you mean Bo Parfet? And he's like, yeah. I said, I haven't actually met him. He spoke at the masterclass and workshop we were at. And I said, I would love to get to know him more. And Eric made this happen. So Eric, thank you so much. This has been awesome. I hope that this meeting and having Bo on as an interview has directly impacted everyone's lives listening, because it's impacted mine. And I know it's impacted Julie in 40 minutes. And Bo, you are an incredible human being. And thank you so much for being on here.
Thank you, Eric. Thank you, Dr. Julie. Thank you, Dr. Skip. Thank you so much. Thanks for having me. Thank you, audience.
Thanks, everybody. Now go out there, get it done. Have a great day. Bye, everyone.